She said love was supposed to make you stronger, but that night, it nearly broke me in half. I used to think I knew what love meant. Warm nights on the couch, shared laughter, soft promises whispered in the dark. But sometimes, love is a mirror that shows you who someone really is, and what you refuse to see until it's too late. I met Emily when I was 24, working long shifts at a marketing firm I hated. She worked in HR, the kind of woman who made everyone feel seen. We started as friends, exchanging lunch breaks and coffee runs, and before long, she became the best part of every day. Emily was patient, kind, and full of little quirks. She'd hum old pop songs while organizing her files, leave encouraging notes on sticky pads, and always wear this faded blue scarf, even in summer. She said it was her lucky charm. When she first came over to my place, it wasn't fancy. Just a cramped one-bedroom apartment with a flickering kitchen light. But she smiled like it was a palace. We cooked cheap pasta, watched bad reality TV, and stayed up until sunrise talking about nothing. That night, she fell asleep on my shoulder, and I remember thinking, this is what peace feels like. For 2 years, everything felt easy. No screaming fights, no games. Just comfort. We talked about moving in together, even marriage. I'd already started saving for a ring. But peace, I've learned, doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes, it's just the silence before everything collapses. It started small. She got distant. Her messages turned shorter. Busy, she'd say. Just tired. At first, I believed her. I didn't want to be the insecure boyfriend who asks too many questions. But one night, she didn't come home. I stayed up until 3 a.m. staring at my phone, wondering if something had happened. When she finally texted, it was 3 words: stay with Claire. Claire was her best friend, so I tried not to overthink it. But the next morning, something in me whispered, check her Instagram. That's when I saw it. A story she hadn't hidden from me yet. A boomerang clip at a rooftop bar. Emily laughing, her head tilted back, a guy's arm around her waist. The caption read, just like old times. Old times? I felt something inside me crack. When she came home the next evening, she kissed me like nothing happened. I asked how her night was. She said it was good. That was it. Good. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but all I did was nod. Because that's what you do when you love someone more than they seem to love you back. You pretend you don't notice the change. Over the next few weeks, I caught her smiling at her phone, sneaking into the balcony to talk, hiding her screen when I walked by. The signs were everywhere, but my heart was blind. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until she fell asleep, her phone beside her on the nightstand. My hand shook as I opened it. There was no password. Maybe she didn't think she needed one anymore. The messages were right there. Dozens of them. His name was Ryan. The texts weren't explicit, but they didn't have to be. Can't stop thinking about last night. I miss your voice. Wish I could hold you again. I felt my stomach drop. Every moment replayed in my head. Every kiss, every lie. When she woke up, I didn't yell. I just asked her one question. Who's Ryan? She froze. Her eyes darted everywhere but mine. Then she whispered, he's my ex. I asked if she'd been seeing him. She said, it was a mistake. It meant nothing. But when someone says it meant nothing, it always means something. I told her to pack a bag and leave. She cried, said she didn't mean to hurt me, said she was lost. But I was done being her compass. As she walked out, she looked back once and said, you'll forgive me someday. I didn't answer, because forgiveness, I realized, isn't something you owe to people who destroy you and call it love. I spent the next few weeks trying to rebuild. The apartment felt hollow, like it remembered her too. Every song, every smell, every empty cup on the table reminded me of her absence. But then, one night, she called again. And that's where everything started to unravel all over again. 3 weeks. That's how long it took before Emily called me again. Her name flashing on my phone sent a rush of emotions through me. Anger, grief, longing, confusion. I should have ignored it. I wanted to ignore it. But instead, I answered. Hey, she said softly, her voice trembling. I just wanted to see how you're doing." I laughed bitterly. "You don't get to ask that anymore, Emily." There was silence, then a sigh. "I know I don't deserve it, but I miss you. I really do." That sentence hit harder than I wanted to admit, because even after everything, some part of me still missed her too. She asked if we could meet just to talk. "Closure," she said. "Closure." That word has destroyed more people than heartbreak ever did. Against every ounce of logic, I agreed. We met at our favorite cafe, the one where we used to share pastries on Sunday mornings. She looked the same, tired eyes, messy hair, that same blue scarf. But something in her smile felt rehearsed. When she sat down, I noticed she wasn't wearing a ring, the one I'd given her on our first anniversary. "Ryan's gone," she said before I could even ask. "He used me. I'm so stupid." I stayed silent. She kept talking about how Ryan had promised to leave his girlfriend for her, how she believed him, and how he ghosted her after a week. "I deserve this," she whispered. "I ruined the only real thing I had." Part of me wanted to comfort her. That old instinct kicked in, the part of me that once loved her enough to forgive anything. But another part whispered, she made her choice. I told her, "You didn't ruin what you had. You just proved it wasn't what you thought it was." She started crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind I'd seen before. The entire cafe stared, and I wanted to disappear. When she said, "Can we start over?" something in me broke again, but not in the same way as before. Because I realized in that moment, I didn't love her anymore. I just missed the version of her that existed before she lied. I told her no, not because I hated her, but because I finally respected myself enough to mean it. She didn't take it well. "So that's it? After everything?" "Yes," I said quietly. "That's it." She stood up and left. No dramatic goodbye, no final glance. Just silence. After that, I started focusing on myself, therapy, morning runs, new hobbies. I even deleted her number, though I memorized it long ago. Months passed. Then, out of nowhere, a message appeared on my phone one evening. "I'm getting married. I wanted you to know." I stared at the screen for a long time, my heart oddly calm. There was no anger, no sadness. Just closure, the real kind. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I stepped outside onto my balcony. The city lights shimmered below, rain tapping softly against the railing, the kind of gentle sound that once reminded me of her, but now felt peaceful again. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Because the truth about heartbreak is this: it doesn't end when someone leaves you. It ends when you stop needing answers. And that night, I finally stopped asking why. She taught me something I'll never forget. That love isn't about how much pain you can survive. It's about knowing when to walk away before it destroys you. So, if you're listening right now and still holding on to someone who already let go, this is your sign. You deserve better. You always did. And hey, if you like this story, stick around. There are more stories like this one. Quiet heartbreaks, lessons in love, and moments that remind you you're not alone. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Sometimes, all it takes is one story to help you heal a little faster. I thought I was planning a proposal. Turns out, I was planning my own heartbreak. You know those moments where you think you're finally getting it right? Where everything that once felt chaotic finally starts to make sense. That was me last year. After 3 years together, I was ready to ask Jessica to marry me. We'd been through the usual late-night arguments, job stress, her long work hours, my insecurities, but somehow we always found our way back. She was my best friend, my calm in chaos. Or at least I thought she was. I've been saving for months. Every paycheck, I'd put a little aside for her ring. The one she pointed out in that small jewelry store downtown. White gold, oval diamond, simple but elegant. It wasn't huge, but it was perfect for her. I even asked her dad for permission, which felt weirdly old-fashioned but right. He smiled and said, "Take care of her, son." That night, I felt unstoppable. I had it all planned. The park where we first met, candles, music, her favorite dessert. I was nervous but excited. The only thing I didn't plan for was the text. It came 2 days before I was going to propose. I was sitting at my desk at work when her phone, which she'd left at my apartment, buzzed. Normally, I'd never touch her phone. I trusted her completely, but the preview on the screen froze me. It was from her coworker, Ethan, the guy she always said was just a friend. Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you. I remember staring at it for what felt like hours. My stomach twisted. My hands went cold. I wanted to believe it was some misunderstanding, maybe a joke, maybe work-related, but deep down I already knew. I opened the phone. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was shaking my ribs. The chat went back weeks. Messages, photos, inside jokes. She'd been seeing him behind my back for almost 2 months. And the worst part? They'd been together the night I was out buying her ring. I couldn't breathe. I sat there, surrounded by everything I'd done to make her happy. The framed photos, her favorite blanket, even the stupid mug she said reminded her of me. And suddenly, it all felt fake. I didn't confront her right away. I needed time. I told her I had to work late the next few nights, just to give myself space to think. But every time my phone lit up with her name, I felt sick. The girl I loved, the one I trusted more than anyone, had been lying to me for weeks. I went through every stage of heartbreak in a single night. Disbelief, anger, sadness, guilt. Was it my fault? Did I not give her enough attention? Was I boring? Too predictable? Then I realized, no matter what I did, she made a choice. I planned everything perfectly, but the one thing I couldn't control was her loyalty. The next night, I met with my best friend Mark. I told him everything. He didn't say much, just listened, then finally said, "You need to see her face when you tell her you know. That's when you'll get your answer." So I decided to do it, to confront her the next day. But before I could, something strange happened. She texted me, "Can we talk tonight? There's something I need to tell you." That message hit me like a punch. Did she know I found out? Was she about to confess? I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the screen, feeling the weight of everything. 3 years, thousands of memories, every laugh, every promise. I knew that after tonight, none of it would ever be the same. When she arrived, she looked nervous. She tried to hug me, but I didn't move. She noticed right away. "What's wrong?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked at her. The girl I was going to marry. The girl who'd been lying to me. "You tell me," I said quietly. Her expression changed. Confusion first, then fear. That's when I took out my phone, opened her messages with Ethan, and placed it on the table. Her face went pale. She didn't even try to deny it. That night, everything fell apart, but not in the way you'd expect, because what she said next made me question everything I thought I knew about love and betrayal. Jessica sat down, her hands trembling. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "You weren't supposed to see that." I didn't say a word. I just stared, waiting for her to explain something, anything that could make this make sense. She took a deep breath. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. I could feel my chest tightening. So that's it. 2 months of lying and sneaking around just happened. Jess, we were planning a future. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I know. I hate myself for it. You've always been so good to me, and I don't know what's wrong with me. Ethan and I were working late together, and I was lonely, and you were busy, and I cut her off. Stop. Don't turn this into my fault. She covered her face with her hands. It's not your fault. It's mine. I'm broken, okay? I wanted something exciting again. You're safe, dependable, kind, and I ruined that because I wanted to feel wanted. Those words hit like a brick to the chest. Wanted, as if my love wasn't enough. I stood there, staring at her, the girl I used to think was my forever. She looked small, lost, and terrified, but all I could think about was how easily she'd thrown everything away. Finally, I asked the only question that mattered. Did you love him? Her eyes darted to the floor. No, not like I love you. That word love, it felt poisonous now. You don't love me, I said quietly. You love how I made you feel. That's not the same thing. She broke down completely then, full on sobbing, shoulders shaking. I wanted to feel sorry for her. I wanted to hold her, to comfort her the way I always did. But something inside me had gone numb. It was like I was watching someone else's life unravel in front of me. When she finally calmed down, she whispered, "Please don't leave me." I almost laughed. You already did. There was nothing else to say. I walked into the bedroom, grabbed the small box with her ring, and tossed it onto the table in front of her. "This was supposed to be yours." Her hand flew to her mouth as she realized what it was. She whispered, "Oh my God." "Yeah," I said, trying to steady my voice. "Congratulations. You cheated on your fiancé before I could even ask you to be one." I walked out before she could say another word. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. Every breath felt heavy. I got in my car, sat there for a long time, and just stared at the steering wheel. I didn't cry. Not yet. That came later. Over the next few weeks, she tried to reach out. Calls, texts, emails, all ignored. She even showed up at my apartment once, crying at my doorstep, begging me to talk. But every time I looked at her, I saw that text. Last night was perfect. The truth is, forgiveness doesn't come easy when trust is gone. You can rebuild a house after a storm, but not when the foundation's gone. I focused on work, the gym, anything to keep my mind busy. But heartbreak isn't something you can outrun. It shows up when the music stops, when the room goes quiet, when your phone lights up and you think it's them for just a second. That's when it hurts the most. Months later, I ran into her by accident at the grocery store. She looked thinner, tired, like life had been chewing her up too. She smiled weakly. "Hey," I nodded. "Hey." She asked how I was. I said I was fine, which was mostly true. Then she said, "I still think about you. Every day." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded again. "Take care of yourself, Jess." And I walked away. When I got home, I sat in silence for a while. Then I opened my phone, deleted every picture, every old text, every trace of her. Not out of hate, but because I was finally ready to move on. That night, I did something small but important. I went for a walk alone. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel empty. Heartbreak doesn't end all at once. It fades quietly, piece by piece, until one day you realize you're not waiting for an apology anymore. You just want peace. And maybe that's what healing really is. Learning to be okay with what you'll never understand. If you're still listening, thank you for staying till the end. Sometimes stories like this remind us that pain doesn't mean the end. It means we care deeply. If this one hit close to home, take a second to breathe, let it go. And remember, you deserve the kind of love that never makes you question your worth. And if you'd like to hear more calm, emotional stories like this, make sure you stay with us. There's a lot more coming your way tonight. She said she'd never hurt me. Turns out, she just needed the right reason to. When I first met Jenna, she felt like a sunrise after years of gray mornings. I'd just gotten out of a long relationship that ended badly. The kind where you stop recognizing yourself halfway through, and by the end, you're just a version of you that's tired and hollow. Jenna wasn't supposed to be anything serious. We met at a small party thrown by my coworker, Sarah. I remember seeing her sitting on the couch, legs crossed, a glass of wine in hand, laughing at something someone said. Her laugh wasn't forced like most people's. It was this soft, unfiltered sound that drew everyone in. I don't know if I believed in love at first sight before that night, but I do know I couldn't stop thinking about her afterward. We started talking casually. A few texts turned into daily conversations, and within a month I was hooked. She was smart, witty, and could hold her ground in any argument, something I actually liked. It kept things interesting. The first few months were perfect. We'd go on late-night drives just to get fries and talk about everything. Her childhood dreams, my stupid mistakes, the people who hurt us, and the ones we still couldn't forgive. She made vulnerability feel easy. But here's the thing about people who make you drop your guard. Sometimes they're the ones holding the knife. It started small, little lies I brushed off because I didn't want to seem controlling. Once, she said she was meeting her friend Megan after work, but later, when I asked how it went, She couldn't remember what restaurant they went to. Another time, I noticed a guy named Evan constantly commenting on her posts. Hearts, fire emojis, inside jokes. She told me he was just a friend from college. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her tone started changing. She got more defensive, more secretive with her phone. Then came the night everything snapped. We planned a weekend trip to the mountains, just the two of us. She said she had to stay late at work Friday, but would drive up early Saturday morning. Around 10 p.m. that night, I texted her, "Made it here safe. Miss you." No response. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. I assumed maybe her phone died, but something in my gut didn't sit right. So I did something I'm not proud of. I checked her location. She'd shared it with me months ago for safety reasons and forgot to remove it. Her wasn't moving. It was parked outside an address I didn't recognize, in the city, not near her workplace. At first, I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe she was visiting someone. But the longer I stared at that blinking dot, the more it felt like a heartbeat pounding in my chest. I drove back, 2 hours straight through the night. When I got to that address, I parked across the street. It was an apartment complex, lights still on in one of the top windows. And through those curtains, I saw exactly what I feared. Her silhouette, and another one. I froze. My heart didn't break, it just stopped, like it didn't know what to do with the pain. I didn't knock. I didn't call. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. After about 10 minutes, I drove away, slowly, quietly, like leaving the scene of a crime I didn't commit. When she texted me the next morning, pretending everything was fine, I didn't respond. She called. Then she called again. Eventually, she drove up to the cabin, crying, saying her phone had died. She'd been worried sick. I didn't say a word. I just handed her my phone with a picture I'd taken the night before through her window. She went pale, completely silent. Then, like all liars do when cornered, she tried to twist it. "How could you follow me? You invaded my privacy." I laughed. I actually laughed because it was so pathetic. Privacy? You lost that when you lied to me. She stormed out after that. I didn't stop her. For weeks after, she tried reaching out, emails, texts, even showing up at my workplace once. I ignored everything, but what I didn't ignore was the anger that kept boiling underneath. She had played me and gotten away with it like it was nothing. That's when I started thinking about revenge. Not the messy, dramatic kind, the quiet, calculated one that leaves them wondering why everything suddenly falls apart. I knew a lot about her. Her work, her boss, the way she used company accounts for personal projects. I also knew she had a fake portfolio she'd submitted during her last promotion. It wouldn't take much to make that information visible. But revenge isn't just about payback. It's about taking back power, about making the person who made you feel worthless feel small again. So I started planning, carefully. When I started, I told myself I'd do it clean. No shouts at the restaurant, no public humiliation, no petty social posts. I wanted something that required a slow, careful hand. Something surgical that would leave no room for her to play victim and no way for her to spin it into drama she could control. I spent nights thinking through the angles. Jenna worked at a small marketing agency that lived and died by client trust. She prided herself on being the person who could smooth the edges, spin disaster into something digestible. That same confidence made her careless. She'd brag, drink too much at company parties, and once, in a fit of overconfidence, show me an email thread where she'd edited a client's financial projection to look more attractive. "It's only optics," she'd said. "No one ever checks the spreadsheet twice." That's where the first crack lived. I began collecting. Not stalker level, not the stuff that makes police calls, just the little things people leave in plain sight. I saved screenshots, archived emails, and quietly asked a contractor friend some technical questions until I knew the exact format the company used for client reports. I pulled together a folder of proof, innocuous in fragments but damning stitched together. Most people mistake revenge for noise, but real revenge is boring. It's spreadsheets and patience. It's waiting for the architecture you designed to collapse under its own weight. The first move was subtle, a false proposal email. I created a clean, professional-looking document in the company template, project milestones, estimated deliverables, a conservative budget. I emailed it from what looked like the firm's new vendor portal to Jenna's inbox, but I timed it to arrive at a client-facing address that would be forwarded to her. The idea was to bait a revision, something she'd be tempted to optimize because that's what she did. She took the bait. She edited the projections, and most importantly, she attached it to the client brief that went out that week. 2 weeks later, one of their biggest clients, a boutique hospitality group, called the agency furious. The numbers didn't match the earlier contract. Profit margins had been misreported. The hospitality client accused the agency of misleading them. Jenna's manager demanded to see the original files. All the company's data was audited. The IT team pulled server logs, names, IP addresses, versions, everything. When they found an edited doc, Jenna was the one who'd approved it in the chain. 2 days after that, she was in a meeting with HR. She defended herself, said she'd fixed the file and thought it would be fine. She cried in the hallway like she'd been wronged. The agency called it a serious error in judgment and put her on an internal review. I watched from the periphery. It felt empty and electric at the same time. I hadn't wanted anyone to lose a job. I wanted accountability. I wanted her to feel the disorienting heat of consequence the way I'd burned months walking through her half-truths. But she recovered faster than I expected. Jenna was good at damage control, the exact skill she had used to hide the first infidelities. She apologized to the client, to the team, promised stricter checks and audits, and she slid back into her role with a practiced humility. To her coworkers, the episode looked like a temporary stumble. To me, it felt like a misfired arrow. If the spreadsheet didn't topple her, then I needed a plan that cut closer to what she cherished most: reputation and the illusion of control. The next step was social, quieter, intimate, and designed to reach people she trusted. Jenna adored her curated life online. Her Instagram profile was a tidy mosaic of aesthetics: soft light, weekend trips, perfectly plated brunches. She kept a private close friends list where she posted rawer things: late-night rants, snapshots of exes, small confessions. That's where she felt safe to be unsanitized. I found a way in through someone she trusted, a vendor she'd worked with who handled promotional events and sometimes complained about late payments. He'd gotten sloppy about invoices and once, drunkenly, told me about a copy of a rough, close friend's story he'd seen accidentally on Jenna's screen in a meeting. The vendor didn't mean harm. He was just tired and blurted it out. I didn't pounce. I waited until a small moment when Jenna was rushed. I approached the vendor like a helpful friend. "Hey, if you ever wanted to share the stress, I could introduce you to a platform that tracks invoices better." We talked shop. I planted the seed that the vendor's software was professional and also offered archive features. He downloaded it. He started using it. Months later, the vendor upgraded and imported everything, including that one small cache of photos and drafts he'd never meant to keep. The vendor's account got hacked. It was sloppy cybercrime, a basic password reused across sites, phishing the usual route. Whoever broke into his account found the cache of images and messages, and suddenly the close friends' photos were out in the world. This part of the plan felt messier in practice than in my head. I didn't expect the sick twist of guilt when I saw a leaked screenshot of Jenna, a raw, unfiltered photo of her kissing Evan, a man she'd told me was merely a project collaborator. The internet had a way of magnifying small sins into permanent records. Comments poured in. People who had always admired her public persona now whispered. The agency's PR team scrambled to issue a statement. "We value privacy and are actively investigating a breach." A supposed privacy breach didn't make the photo less true. It just made it public. Jenna, in the center of it, raged and sobbed, and tried to reclaim her narrative. She called me again, pleading, begging, accusing me of everything from complicity to enjoying her downfall. I didn't answer. I wouldn't answer. The truth is that moment felt less like victory and more like the first time you finally let go while watching a kite float away. Part exhilaration, part grief. As the scandal cooled, two things happened that I hadn't fully foreseen. First, other small skeletons tumbled out, petty mistakes, tiny ethical bends that now looked more like a pattern of cutting corners. They were things people forgave until context changed. In the light of a breach, they didn't look like minor errors. They looked like a style. Second, I started to feel the strange loneliness of someone who'd become the architect of pain. Sitting in that mix of damage, I began to ask myself why I'd wanted this at all. Revenge has a way of reflecting the avenger back at themselves. The weeks turned into a slow, cold routine. Jenna shifted between fury and apology. She'd send messages in the early morning, raw and messy. "I'm so sorry. Please come back. I'll tell him to leave." Then quiet for days. She tried to arrange meetings where she'd cry and sound sincere. Sometimes she begged me to meet in public places so other people would see her vulnerability and perhaps pity her back in a favor. I refused. During one of those moments when she was particularly insistent, something else happened. I met Evan. Funny, right? The man whose name on a screen had cleaved my nights in half turned out to be ordinary. He wasn't the bad boy mastermind I'd built in my head. He was awkward, a little defensive, and, crucially, he wasn't stupid. He was the sort of person who gets involved in someone else's life because something is missing in his own. That's what he told me in the 2 conversations we forced ourselves into. We met because I wanted answers and because he wanted to justify his part. He said he loved her. He said he thought she loved him. He spoke of stolen moments, texts written late at night, the kind of intimacy that feels enormous in the moment and small by morning. I saw how he had been used in a script where Jenna was both victim and playwright. He'd given her attention. She'd given him secrets. Neither of them knew how fragile their castle was. After that, the infidelity felt less like an existential betrayal and more like a mutual failure. 2 people using each other for warmth in a room that needed heat. It didn't excuse it. It simply complicated the anger. But that complexity did not stop the plan. If anything, it changed me. I found myself wanting not merely to punish, but to create a mirror that might show her the depth of what she'd lost. Not as revenge theater, but as a harsh kindness. It's a strange thing to look back on. Sometimes you do cruel things because you hope the cruelty forces someone to a truth they've refused to face. The campaign's last act was the quietest. I sent an anonymous package to the agency's founder. Inside was a meticulously printed dossier. Dates, screenshots, email strings, a short, tightly written timeline. No accusations, only facts. The idea was that facts remove the lie that everything is a moment and reveal the pattern. I wanted the leadership to take a hard look without a PR spin being able to sweep it under the rug. It would force internal checks, yes, and a real reckoning. 2 weeks later, Jenna was called into a meeting. This one was different. An external auditor had been hired. The tone in her boss's voice was flat and official. "We need to talk about compliance." They reviewed her accounts and her edits. They asked for her original files. She stumbled through explanations that had always worked. Rushed emails, miscommunication, an honest mistake. But the dossier painted a longer story. This time, HR called it a pattern inconsistent with our ethics, and she was placed on a leave of absence pending a review. When the company announced the leave internally, Jenna once again performed the role of appealing, of promising to do better. Outside, she sent messages to me. "Please, I'm so scared. I don't know how to handle this. Why would someone do this to me?" I read them and felt an unexpected hole open in my chest. I thought I knew exactly why. I was the one who had spent nights sewing truth into a neat outline. I was the one who'd handed the company the map. 2 days after her leave, I received a message from her sister. She said, "You did this." Is it true? It was a simple question, and I answered simply, it's true. Her sister didn't reply. That silence bit. You'd expect vindication to feel like a reward. Instead, it felt like the end of a road I hadn't meant to travel down. Not long after, I found myself at a bar with a stranger, drinking from the sort of dull glass that only empties. I asked the bartender for the strongest thing he had, and he handed me something with a label I couldn't pronounce. I sat there thinking about all the ways people get tangled, in lies, in half-loves, in the comfortable cages they build for themselves. And then the text came that finally made me feel something like fear, a message from Jenna's manager. It was short. We need to talk. Please come in Monday. He meant for me to be involved because my fingerprints were everywhere they needed to be. The agency wanted to hear my account, my evidence, my side of the story. I was asked to compile everything. In a way, it was the part one had always been ready for. Another part of me wished I'd never written those emails, never printed those screenshots, never taught myself the language of consequence. When I walked into that office, Jenna was already there, sitting stiff as a mannequin, mascara traces like faded ink beneath her eyes. She glared at me, but the glare was smaller, less ferocious than it had been at first. We traded only a few words in the hallway. Why? You know why. You didn't have to stoop so low. You didn't have to be unfaithful. Inside the conference room, the mood was clinical. A lawyer sat on one side, peering through glasses. HR asked for details. The company's external auditor asked for precise dates. I put my folder on the table. Every email thread, every screenshot, every horribly intimate message. I handed them to the auditor and said, plainly, I want this to be handled properly. I watched her face transform through confusion, indignation, and a curve that might have been regret. For the next few weeks, the agency separated work that could be damaged by the scandal from clients who needed reassurance. They tightened security protocols, issued statements about privacy, about ethics, about their dedication to clients. They offered counseling to their employees. Jenna posted a vague apology on social media, short and measured. She thanked the firm for support during a difficult time. Clients left, some quietly, some publicly. Recruitment paused. Jenna's name stopped appearing on bylines, and the colleague who had once leaned on her for creative fixes now kept a cautious distance. To outsiders, it looked like a scandal that had run its course. To me, it looked like the slow erosion of someone's carefully curated world. And yet, this is where the story gets complicated, where nuance bites and leaves scars on both of us. I imagine a month of victory, the taste of justice, the satisfaction of rebalanced scales. But all I felt was a fatigue that settled deep in my bones. I'd built a house of consequences and lived long enough inside it to understand the draft. One night, a mutual friend, Sarah, the co-worker who'd introduced us, texted me, "Are you happy?" I stared at the message too long. How could I be? I had what I thought I wanted: clarity, accountability, truth. But truth was not a light. It was a mirror, and now I had to face the reflection of the person who had wrought it. A week later, I found a voicemail from Evan. He told me he was moving to another city. "I'm sorry for my role," he said. "I never wanted to hurt anyone. I wish things were different." His voice was small. It sounded like mine sometimes on nights when sleep is a thin sheet. In the months that followed, I saw Jenna in pieces. I saw her posts about long walks and therapy and trying to learn the checklist of self-improvement. She dated a couple of times publicly, but those relationships were short and public like cautionary tales. Her sister stopped being her most vocal defender online. Coworkers who once invited her to late nights now sent polite DMs. Was she punished? Partly. Was she learning? I don't know. People change under pressure. Some become brittle and break. Others are remade. I watch from a distance, never fully comfortable with the pedestal or the guillotine. The strangest aftermath was the way things shifted between us. Initially, there was a hard line, no contact, bitter glances. Then, one evening at a mutual friend's small gathering, we bumped into each other. She was quieter than I remembered, her laugh less a weapon and more memory. She approached me and, without preamble, said, "You destroyed me." It was simple, not an accusation so much as a fact. "I did," I said. The truth slid out of my mouth like something I'd been keeping in my throat for months. I made sure no one could gaslight you back to comfort. There was a cruelty in that phrase that surprised me. She sat down across from me, and for the first time since the nights of broken messages, there were no theatrics. She said, "Do you ever regret it?" I thought about how nights used to be simple, falling asleep next to her, reading until the light clicked off. I thought about how I'd watch those nights unravel because I could not stand being the fool. I thought about losing more than I'd expected. "Yes," I admitted, "I regret how lonely being right can be." She nodded and looked at her hands. "I regret how I covered the truth with pretty things. I regret using people when I felt empty. But I don't think I'll ask you to forgive me." Her voice was small and steadier than I felt. That night, our conversation was honest in a way our months together had never been. Not because it was romantic or restorative, but because both of us were stripped of performative roles. We were simply damaged people talking about damage. In the end, we both carried weight. My revenge had unseated a liar and forced accountability. It had also shown me the hollow center of victory. I'd imagined an indelible triumph, a retreat into peace. Instead, I found a quieter, more complicated truth. Reaction rarely heals. It just reshapes the wound. As the year turned, I began picking up the pieces in other ways. I volunteered with a local community center, teaching a weekend marketing class to small business owners. I took long hikes in the early mornings and discovered a patience for being alone. I stopped stalking her social media. I started rewriting my own stories, not as payback, but as an attempt to become someone who would not need to burn down a life to be seen. We rarely spoke after that. A few texts around holidays, a single brief email when she needed a reference. She asked for one favor once, a character reference for a freelance gig she was applying to. I hesitated, then wrote a careful, honest note. It was small. It was humane. Years later, I found myself at a gallery opening where a friend had displayed work. Photographs of streets, ordinary things turned luminous. Jenna was there too, not as the centerpiece, but as another person in the crowd. She gave a small smile when she saw me. It was not an apology, exactly, but it was acknowledgement. I nodded back. There are nights when I still imagine a different path, one where I'd asked for truth gently, where she'd been honest, and where the affair dissolved before it began. Maybe that's just what we tell ourselves to stop feeling guilty about our choices. Maybe it's the mind's way of trying on alternate endings so the present is bearable. What I learned in all of this, the slow construction of a quiet revenge and the hollow victory that followed, was not a comforting lesson. It's gritty and morally gray. Sometimes you retaliate because someone hurt you and you want them to feel it too. Sometimes accountability is necessary. And sometimes your methods leave you with a solitude you weren't prepared for. If you're listening and your heart's raw, if someone hurt you and you're imagining 1,000 ways to make them feel it, know this. Truth is the better weapon than spectacle. Speak honestly when you can. Let systems take care of big harms when they exist. And if you choose a darker path, be honest about why you did. Owning the shadow is better than pretending it doesn't exist. I don't know what became of Jenna in the deepest sense. I think she's still learning. I know I am. We are both products of small choices made daily. The lying, the looking away, the small kindnesses we give ourselves afterward. None of it makes us saints. None of it excuses us either. If this story kept you listening, I appreciate you letting it sit with you. There are more stories where mistakes are messy and endings are complicated. If you want to hear another one, stay a while and consider subscribing. It helps more than you know, and it keeps these quiet, true things alive for people who need them most. He kissed her in our kitchen, under the light we picked out together, and I watched like I was a ghost. That's when I decided I would make sure he never forgot the face of what he'd broken. I still remember the light in our kitchen that night, how it pooled on the counter like warm honey, the way you could stand in one spot and feel small comforts arrange themselves around you, as if the house itself were a person offering its arms. We picked that fixture together 3 months after we moved in, and when it hung above the island, it felt like a promise. Simple, honest. It was the kind of choice that says, we're building something. So when I say the betrayal happened under that light, I want you to picture the ordinary things first, because ordinary is where surprises hide, and surprises don't need fireworks to ruin your whole life. They just need a moment when you look up and realize the person next to you was standing on the edge of being someone else for a reason you couldn't see. Her name was Claire. She worked in design, freelance mostly, open schedule, messy genius with ink stains on her fingers and ideas that came like storms. We met at a gallery opening. She spilled wine on my shirt, laughed like she'd fixed nothing, but actually made everything better. It was careless and warm and stupidly easy. We moved in together a year later. We were 32 and making all the responsible mistakes people make when they think they've got time. For 2 years, the world was a soft place. We made bad breakfasts. We fought about the right temperature for the shower. We argued about movies and then fell asleep halfway through. We built lists, kitchen tools, plants that wouldn't die, a dog name that never stuck. We were boring, and I liked that boringness more than anything. I thought it meant safe. Then the small things started. Minor, almost invisible, like hair on the sink that wasn't mine, a receipt from a cafe I didn't know, text she deleted a little too quickly when I walked in the room. Each one, a pinprick of annoyance. You collect them because you trust the person enough to think they're meaningless. One night, I came home early from a business trip. It was raining. The city smelled like wet tar and hot coffee. I turned the key in the lock like I always did, expecting the glow from the kitchen light and the sound of her voice complaining about the heat. Instead, I heard laughter, low, familiar wrong. I froze in the entryway and listened. It was a man's laugh, not huge or boisterous, just the kind that folds comfortably into someone's chest. I could have turned and walked away. I could have called the hotel and gone back to my room, let whatever was happening happen without me. But I promised myself I would be honest with myself if it ever came to that. So I crept forward the way you move through a house, like the back of your hand. And then I saw them. They were close, thinner than the picture in my head of my girlfriend, with his hand on the curve of her waist, and she was leaning into him like a ship does into wind. He kissed her with a slowness I remembered from movie scenes I'd mocked, and my stomach turned into something solid and cold. It felt like my shadow had been replaced by a stranger. I stood there under the coat rack, watching the betrayal like a spectator at a play that ended my life in the last act. When they finally saw me, neither of them looked shocked. Claire stepped back like she'd been caught doing something dumb, and the man, his name was Alex, he just shrugged like shrugging would cover everything. "Hey," he said, like I was the uninvited guest and not the man whose bed they'd been in an hour ago. His voice had that casual cruelty people use when they think affectionate phrases can anesthetize guilt. I didn't speak. I don't remember if I closed the door behind me. The next thing I remember is the slapping sound of my foot on the stairs as I ran up, because running felt like a better answer than conversation. I could feel the rain through the window. I could still see them in the kitchen when I closed my eyes. Claire sent a text that night. "We need to talk," but her words landed like a stone in water, and the ripples kept hitting me. The confrontation wasn't cinematic in the beginning. No shouting, no dramatic dissolving of the relationship on the spot. Claire sat on the edge of the bed with her phone on her knees, and she admitted everything in pieces, like a person telling a story they can't stand to own. She loved him, she said. It had been months. He made her feel alive, she said. Our life had been safe and steady and boring, she said. She said like those qualities were guilty of something. I left, she told me, and I felt something loosen in my chest, like a knot finally giving way. Not the kind of relief you want, but a bitter, necessary release. She tried to hold on. I tried to forgive. That first week was a theater of someone trying to be the person they'd been before the knife. We both learned the limits of apologies. She'd cry, I'd stare, and the gap between us swallowed our memories. I moved into a small apartment above a bakery for 3 months. I told my friends I needed space, that we'd be fine. We weren't. The divorce papers, not legal ones yet, but the ones that matter, were words we stopped saying aloud. The silence said them loud enough. Revenge was not my first thought. It didn't feel righteous or romantic. It felt like a tinderbox that lit itself on the edge of the things she'd broken. For weeks, that idea, a small, ugly ember, pulsed under my skin. I told myself I wanted to make things right, to make the betrayal hurt in a way she would recognize. But grief is a teacher that dresses you in strange clothes. It sits you in long nights and hands you instruments you never thought you'd use. And then one day, I saw Alex again. He was at a coffee shop where I'd gone only because it was raining and the bakery upstairs closed early on Tuesdays. He sat across the room, laughing with a friend, and when he looked up, his eyes flicked for a second too long in my direction. I could have ignored him. I could have been the better man. Instead, I watched his face and felt something click. He had the arrogance of someone who felt invincible. He also had something I'd been missing, a weakness I could exploit. That week, I started paying attention. Not the petty, reactive kind of attention that follows someone like a ghost. Real, patient, meticulous attention. Where Alex worked, who his friends were, his quirks, the email format his company used, the name of his boss's boss. You'd be surprised how many people leave doors unlocked in their lives. All I had to do was notice which ones were swinging. My plan wasn't murder or theft or anything illegal. I'm not that kind of person. My revenge would be cinematic, big enough to leave a scar, clever enough to make her think twice about the life she'd chosen. I wanted to dismantle the image she loved building, to pull the rug from under their glittered fairy tale without burning down their house. I wanted consequences that matched the scale of what she'd done. I started with his job. Alex worked at a boutique real estate firm that relied on prestige clients and glossy presentations. One slight misstep, one fabrication, one email incorrectly sent, and a project could unravel. I found his LinkedIn. From there, I pieced together server names, report templates, the stupid little things people forget are important when they're too busy thinking they're charming. Then I found out they had a presentation coming up with an investor who was notoriously picky. Enough leverage for a man who wanted to punish someone who thought he could hurt him and walk away. I took the long route. I learned how to write a convincing fake email that looked obedient and urgent. I learned when staff would be lax, who would forward things without reading, the small bureaucratic holes in that world. I didn't use hacking or blackmail. I used timing and human nature. I sent one email to Alex's assistant, one that looked like a draft correction from the head office, with an updated investor spreadsheet attached. The spreadsheet looked fine at first glance, but I'd altered the cash flow projections by a conservative-sounding 50%. Not dramatic enough to flag on immediate inspection, subtle enough that a hurried manager would approve. It landed in Alex's inbox 2 days before the pitch. He forwarded it like a man on autopilot. The investor had the numbers on a printed page and asked questions that would have been easy to answer if the numbers matched previous documents. They didn't. The meeting went sideways. An investor walked. The partner who introduced Alex's team was furious. Alex was blamed for the oversight. He apologized in hallways. He drank too much that night at a bar, and I saw him there, again, looking smaller. It should have been enough. It wasn't. Revenge, it turns out, is greedy. It wants the other person to suffer in every place they feel strong. So I escalated, not in brutality, in exposure. Alex had a habit that made him vulnerable. He was loud about his wins on social media. He boasted with photos of yachts and new gadgets, the sort of life that reads like a highlight reel. Those images, unmoored from reality, looked ridiculous when the money dried up. When clients pulled their funds, his online life became both embarrassing and a liability in the circles that mattered. Around that time, Claire posted photos, staged perfect a life of our dreams sequence that makes everyone else feel like they're flunking at happiness. I started to notice the holes in those photos. The expensive handbag she posed with, it was a lone prop from a shoot. The sunset she posted from our weekend, we never went there. Her angle was cropped to hide the row of rental cars that lined the scene. Her life had become a series of lies edited with filters. I chose an audience she valued, the design world and the little elite they adored. I sent a quiet message to a well-known blogger who'd once praised her work, hinting at the agency's blurred ethics and the stage personas many designers cultivated for marketability. I attached a couple of screenshots, nothing inflammatory, just a suggestion that the runway might be paved with small consequence, delivered with velvet. The blogger ran a piece. It wasn't an attack. It was a toned piece about authenticity. But authenticity, when the subject has been performing for years, is like a ledge. You step off, and everyone's reaction spells out the truth. Claire's followers shrank. Her pitches went unanswered. The design job she'd been promised? It stalled. Alex's investor drama compounded with the slinky social fallout. They both felt the world tighten. Even then, I made sure not to cross a line I didn't want to live with. I wasn't trying to ruin lives entirely. I was trying to carve a lesson into a story that had been told as if pain had no stakes. There's a difference between revenge and vindictiveness. I wanted the former, not the latter. But here's the thing about revenge that isn't in romantic movies. It sits with you. It tastes like smoke. While the world watched them stumble, I sat in my apartment and looked at photos of us. I held a mug we'd once shared and realized the strange selfishness of my campaign. It had been as much about proving something to myself as about teaching them a lesson. I wanted to reclaim dignity by stripping theirs. I wanted the balance restored with claws and precision, but I didn't want harm without an end. The end, for me, wasn't a headline or a viral video. It was a small scene. Claire standing in an empty studio, her phone buzzing with texts that turned into silence when she read them, her hands shaking because the number of opportunities she once thought endless was suddenly finite. Alex trying to explain to a client why projections had changed, and the client looking at him like he'd failed at being a man in a world that equates competence with worth. That's the kind of wound I wanted to leave, the kind that makes you understand the ripple of betrayal. By the time they realized someone had stitched these loose threads together, it was too late. It wasn't dramatic. No fireworks, no courtrooms, just the slow disappearance of favors, the drying up of small kindnesses, and the social freezes that happen when people decide who they want to be around. Revenge had done what I'd hoped. It had carved consequence into their days. But I won't lie to you, the nights after felt like waiting in a burnout theater. You walk past the seats where the applause came from and find yourself echoing in emptiness. I'd achieved something, yes, but I also found myself with a hollow where I expected triumph. The act of making someone face what they'd done doesn't always heal you. Often, it asks more of you than you anticipated. The last time I saw Claire before she left the city, she didn't yell. She didn't try to seduce or plead. She stood in the doorway with a duffel bag, looking like someone you see once in a dream and then forget. She said, simply, "You made your point." Her voice had the kind of hoarseness that comes from someone who's cried enough to lose the edges of their voice. I wanted to tell her I'd regretted parts of it. I wanted to tell her that I had thought long about consequences for others. But the only words I managed were, "Maybe I did." She walked out, the way you leave a story you can't be in anymore. For a second, I thought maybe the revenge had freed me. Maybe being right would be its own salvation. But the city has a way of teaching you. Being right can be lonely in the same way being wrong is. The difference is only the shape of the emptiness. So I stayed. I finished the book I'd started before all this. I took photographs of the river on gray days, and I let the hours fold into themselves. The phone still buzzed with the occasional note from friends. Sometimes I get a message from Alex, brief, like a man realizing slowly what he'd lost. He never sent apologies that mattered, only the kind that float by on social media like half-formed regrets. And yet, on the nights when the rain hit the window just so, and the kitchen light pooled warm on the island we'd picked together, I would sit and remember the way betrayal looked up close. I'd think about how I'd chosen to answer it. Revenge, cinematic or not, taught me something I didn't expect. It doesn't restore what was taken. It rearranges what remains. It changes you into someone who can carry the weight of a punished memory. There will be a part 2 to this story, the fallout, the reckoning that follows when people reassemble their lives after their image is shattered. There will be a moment of confrontation that I can't let slide into cliché. There will be truth, and there will be consequences that surprise us all. For now, this is the beginning, the slow, heated plan and its first gentle fractures. The next morning, the sun felt too bright, too calm, like it hadn't seen what happened last night. My phone buzzed nonstop, but I didn't answer. Every message from Claire popped up like tiny knives. Sorry, please, can we talk? No, not anymore. I stare at the mirror, my eyes red, jaw tight. Revenge had always sounded loud, but right now it felt quiet, like standing in the aftermath of a storm you started yourself. Around noon, my friend Jason called. He'd helped me set everything up, the exposure, the timing, the receipts. Man, you good? He asked. I sighed. Good's not the word, but I'm not broken anymore. Jason chuckled. Then you already won. That evening, Claire showed up at my door. No makeup, eyes swollen, hair pulled back. She looked smaller, like guilt had shaved inches off her height. Please, just hear me out, she said. I didn't invite her in. I just leaned on the doorframe. I was stupid, she whispered. I didn't even love him. I wanted attention. You work so much, you're always trying to fix everything. I exhaled, half laugh, half grief. You wanted attention, so you destroyed trust. She winced. I deserve that. But can we maybe start over? I shook my head slow. No, you don't rebuild on ashes. You build somewhere new. Claire started crying. Not the soft movie kind, but raw, ugly sobs that make your throat ache just hearing them. I didn't say another word. I just closed the door. That sound, her sobbing through the wood, stayed with me longer than I want to admit. For weeks, I kept my head down, worked, slept, ate alone. But something in me kept whispering, you still need to face him. Alex. So one Friday, I drove downtown. His office glass windows reflected everything. Me, the street, the skyline. I walked straight into the lobby. When he saw me, his face froze. Dude, listen. No, I said calm, steady. You had your turn to talk when you were in my house. People were staring. I didn't care. You took something from me. I continued. But I took something back. Your reputation. Fair trade. He looked down, jaw tight. I lost my job. You happy? Not happy, just done. I left. No yelling, no drama. Just quiet power. The kind that doesn't need witnesses. Weeks turned to months. Revenge burned hot, then dimmed. And somewhere in that silence, I started to heal. One rainy night, I met someone new. Her name was Riley. She laughed like she didn't owe the world anything. She asked questions that didn't sound rehearsed. When she listened, it felt like warmth. I didn't tell her everything right away. But one night, I said, I've been through some stuff. She smiled soft. We all have. What matters is you came out of it kinder. That line stuck. Kinda. I'd spent months trying to prove strength. But maybe real strength was being able to love again. We started small. Coffee, walks, quiet nights with rain against the window. Every laugh felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Then one afternoon, I saw Claire again. Grocery store, aisle 5. She froze. I nodded, kept walking. Closure without words. At home, Riley asked, You okay? Yeah, I said for the first time in a long time. I looked outside, rain tracing lines down the glass. Life was still messy, still human. But it was mine again. If you've been through heartbreak, betrayal, or just need something calm to fall asleep to, you're in the right place. There are more stories waiting. Some soft, some strong, all real. So stay, listen, and if the story meant something to you, subscribe because tomorrow night we start again. I always thought love ended with shouting, doors slamming, and someone leaving in the middle of the night. Turns out, sometimes it ends quietly, a slow fade, like the way daylight slips off the horizon before you even notice. We'd been together 6 years. Me, Ethan, her, Lila. We met in college. She was the kind of girl who turned silence into music just by talking. The first time I heard her laugh, I forgot my own name. The thing is, Lila never wanted simple. She wanted more adventure, more meaning, more life. I was fine with quiet mornings and routine. Maybe that was our problem from the start. Last winter, things started feeling off. She'd go missing for hours with no texts. When I asked, she'd smile that easy smile and say, "Work ran late. Don't worry so much." I wanted to believe her. God, I tried. One night, her phone buzzed while she was in the shower. I glanced over, not snooping, just reflex. The message preview said, "Can't stop thinking about last night." My chest went cold. When she came out, hair dripping, wearing my hoodie like nothing was wrong, I said quietly, "Who's Jake?" Her face drained of color. Just like that, I knew. She said it was nothing, just a friend from work. Then she started crying before I could even say anything else. That's when I realized liars cry fastest when they know they're caught. That night, she slept on the couch. I didn't sleep at all. I stared at the ceiling and thought about every good memory that now had a crack running through it. The next morning, she made coffee, like everything was normal. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "If you want out, just say it." Her eyes filled again. "I don't want out, Ethan. I made a mistake." Mistake. That word felt too small. Like calling a hurricane a drizzle. I went to work in silence. My best friend Nate noticed right away. He's the kind of guy who reads people like open books. "What happened?" he asked. "Found out she cheated," I muttered. He nodded slow. "What you gonna do?" "I don't know yet, but I can't just pretend it didn't happen." That night, I came home to find dinner on the table. Lila had cooked my favorite, lasagna, garlic bread, candlelight. Tried to erase guilt with carbs. I sat down anyway, stared at her across the table. "Why him?" I asked. She sighed, eyes glistening. "Because he made me feel seen. You've been distant, Ethan. It's like you love the idea of me, not me anymore." That cut deep because part of it was true, but truth doesn't excuse betrayal. I was distant because I thought we were stable, I said. Didn't know I had to fight for what was already supposed to be ours. She reached across the table. I didn't take her hand. The following weeks were a blur of tension and forced smiles. We went through motions, dinners, movies, pretending for friends. But behind closed doors, silence was heavy enough to crush the walls. Then one evening, Nate called me again. "You sitting down?" "Yeah, why?" "Jake, the guy from her work, he's been bragging at the bar about sleeping with your girlfriend. Twice." Something in me snapped. Not the loud kind, the quiet, lethal kind that means you've hit your limit. I hung up, grabbed my jacket, and left. Didn't tell Lila where I was going. The bar was downtown, dim, crowded. I spotted Jake immediately. All smug grin and cheap cologne. I walked up slow. "You Jake?" He smirked. "Depends who's asking." "The boyfriend," I said. The grin vanished. People turned to watch. I didn't throw a punch. I just leaned close and said, "You can keep your stories, but don't ever say her name again. You understand?" He nodded, pale. I left. When I got home, Lila was waiting by the door, panicked. "Where were you?" "Making sure your secret's not a secret anymore." She froze. "Ethan, what did you do?" "Nothing illegal. Just final." We stood there, staring at each other, both knowing something sacred had died. She whispered, "Are we done?" I whispered back, "We were done the moment you forgot who we were." She started crying again. I turned away. That night, I packed half my clothes and slept in Nate's spare room. The smell of her perfume still clung to my jacket. I almost threw it out. Days later, she texted, long paragraphs about how sorry she was, how she missed me, how she'd do anything to fix it. I typed back one word, no. 3 weeks after I left, my apartment still smelled like cardboard boxes and instant coffee. Nate kept trying to get me out. Game nights, road trips, anything to make me stop checking my phone every 5 minutes. But heartbreak has its own clock. It ticks slow and loud. Lila kept texting, "Can we talk? Please, just one chance." I ignored them until one afternoon she showed up outside my place holding the hoodie I'd left behind. "I just wanted to give this back," she said quietly. I almost didn't open the door. But curiosity wins sometimes, especially when the ghost standing on your doorstep used to be your whole life. She looked smaller somehow. Guilt had shrunk her. "I miss you," she whispered. "I miss who you were," I said. She tried to step closer. I stepped back. "You think walking away fixes everything?" she asked. "No," I said, "but staying would have broken me worse." She bit her lip, tears sliding down. Then she said something that would stick with me for months. "I didn't cheat because I stopped loving you, Ethan. I cheated because I stopped loving myself." It sounded rehearsed, like something she'd heard in therapy. But maybe it was true. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. After she left, I sat on the couch staring at that hoodie. It still smelled like her shampoo. For a second, I almost called her back. But I didn't. Instead, I started therapy. Nate had pushed me into it. Said I needed to talk before I turned into a ghost of my own. The first session was brutal. I sat there telling a stranger about the way my stomach dropped every time my phone buzzed. She listened quietly, then asked, "What do you want now?" The question hit me hard. What did I want? Peace, I guess. I started running again. Mornings, when the city's still half asleep. I'd pass couples walking dogs, people grabbing coffee, life going on without me. That hurt at first. Then it started feeling like hope. Months went by. Seasons changed. One night, I got an invite to a mutual friend birthday. I almost didn't go, but Nate said, "You can't hide forever, man." So I went, and there she was, Lila. She was talking to someone new, tall guy, nervous smile. She saw me across the room, froze, then gave a small nod. For a moment, memories hit me all at once. The laughter, the fights, the nights we held hands through storms. Then I felt something unexpected, gratitude. Not for what she did, but for what it taught me. I smiled back, just once, and turned away. Nate clapped my shoulder. "You good?" "Yeah," I said. "I think I finally am." Later that night, I stood outside under the rain. It wasn't heavy, just a soft drizzle that made the street lights blur. I tilted my head back, let it hit my face. For the first time in a long time, the water didn't sting. That's when I realized revenge had already happened, not through anger, but through growth. I'd moved on, and she hadn't. That's the quietest, most complete kind of justice there is. Weeks later, I started writing again. Small posts online about heartbreak, healing, and second chances. People began reading them, leaving comments like, "This helped me get through my breakup." It felt strange, turning pain into something that helped strangers sleep better at night. One day, I got a message from Lila. Not begging this time, just a line. "I read your story. I'm glad you're doing okay. You deserve that." I stared at it for a while, typed back, "Thank you." Nothing else. That was it. No grand finale. No screaming. No closure conversation. Just peace. And maybe that's how real endings work. Quiet, slow, like the rain fading against your window. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about her. Not with anger anymore, just curiosity. If she ever learned to love herself the way she wanted to be loved. If she ever walks past our favorite cafe and remembers the guy who used to wait for her there every morning. But I don't dwell on it. I turn off my phone, take a deep breath, and listen to the rain tapping the glass. Because healing isn't about forgetting who hurt you. It's about remembering who you became after. So if you're listening right now, sitting in the dark, replaying someone who walked away, trust me, the day will come when their name feels light again, when you'll laugh at something random and realize you didn't think of them first. That's when you'll know you're free. And when that day comes, don't forget to keep coming back here. There are more stories waiting, Stories that'll help you breathe a little easier and maybe even fall asleep with a small smile. I wrote her a letter to confess everything I'd never said out loud. But when she found it before I could hide it, she discovered a truth that changed both our lives forever. It started with a mistake, the kind that feels small until it detonates everything around it. Her name was Claire, mine, Ryan. We'd been together 5 years. Built a life filled with coffee cups, lazy Sundays, and quiet plans for forever. Then came a night, I found her phone buzzing on the counter. Just one message, a name I didn't recognize. Can't stop thinking about last night. My world froze. My chest felt hollow, like someone had reached inside and pulled out the air. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. Instead, I did something worse. I started watching, reading every text, memorizing lies, pretending everything was fine while the truth kept bleeding through every smile she gave me. Weeks passed. The man's name kept showing up. Mark, her co-worker. I started writing. Not texts, not emails, letters. One for every lie. One for every night she came home smelling like another world. Those letters became my therapy, my confession, my revenge plan in ink. Because when words can't come out of your mouth, they leak through your pen. Then one morning, I left one of those letters on the table by accident. It was the one where I'd written, "I know what you've done, Claire. I know everything. And one day soon, you'll know what it feels like to lose control the way I did." When I came home, she was sitting there holding it, eyes red, letter trembling in her hands. "Ryan, what is this?" Her voice cracked, half guilt, half fear. I should have yelled. I should have made her feel what I felt. But instead, I smiled. A quiet, dangerous smile. "You weren't supposed to read that yet." She blinked, confused, terrified. "What do you mean yet?" "I mean, I was saving it for after." "After what?" "After you finally understand what betrayal tastes like." She went pale. "Ryan, what did you do?" I didn't answer. I just walked to the window, opened the curtain, and pointed at the car parked across the street. Mark's car. Her phone lit up on the table. Mark calling. I picked it up, answered, and put on speaker. "Hey, beautiful. You left your jacket." Then silence. Claire's face drained of color. Mark's voice stuttered. "Claire, are you there?" I ended the call. "Now you both know what exposure feels like," I said softly. She burst into tears. "Ryan, please. I made a mistake." "No, Claire, you made a choice." The apartment felt like a stage. Every sound too loud, every second stretched thin. Finally, I grabbed my bag, walked to the door, and said, "This isn't revenge, Claire. This is closure. Mine, not yours." Then I left. Days turned into weeks. She tried calling, texting, begging to talk. I ignored it all, until one night, a new envelope slid under my door. My name on the front. Her handwriting. Inside was a letter, her own confession. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I couldn't stand the silence. "You said I'd know what losing control felt like, and you were right. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I keep seeing your face the moment you walked away. If revenge was what you wanted, you've already won. But if you ever love me at all, please don't let hate be the last thing between us." Claire, I read it 5 times. Each word hit different, softer, sadder. That's when something in me shifted. Because revenge isn't clean. It doesn't close wounds. It keeps them open just to prove they still bleed. The next day, I drove to her place. She opened the door before I even knocked. "I didn't think you'd come," she whispered. I almost didn't. We sat in silence for a long time. No shouting this time, just truth. She cried as she talked, told me how lonely she'd felt, how empty the routine had become. It didn't justify anything, but explained the holes neither of us wanted to admit were there. When she finally looked at me, eyes raw and red, she said, "I know I broke something in you, but please don't let it turn into something worse." I didn't forgive her. Not that night. Maybe not ever. But I walked out of her apartment lighter than I'd walked in, because revenge had ended where understanding began. Still, there was one last thing she didn't know. The letters. All of them. I hadn't destroyed them. I'd turn them into something else. A story. Posted online under a fake name, it started getting attention. People called it haunting, real, cinematic. Some said it helped them leave toxic relationships. One night, I got a message from a new account. I read your story. I think it's about me. I hope you're okay. I'm trying to be better now. I stared at it for a long time, then replied, Good. Keep trying. That was the last time we ever spoke. Months later, I moved to a new city. Clean slate, small apartment, sunlight that didn't remind me of anyone. Sometimes I still find one of those old letters tucked in a box. Read the words of a version of myself that needed revenge just to breathe. And every time I smile, because those words aren't anger anymore. They're proof I survived. So if you're listening right now, wondering if revenge will make it hurt less, it won't. It'll only teach you what forgiveness actually costs. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't fire or fury. It's walking away so quietly that the silence becomes their punishment. It's been 8 months since that night I walked out of Claire's apartment. 8 months since my phone stopped lighting up with her name. 8 months of pretending I'd moved on. But pretending is easy. Healing, that's the hard part. I got a new job. Different city, different skyline, different coffee shop that didn't smell like her perfume. Still, every once in a while, I'd find myself checking my messages, waiting for a text that would never come. Then one rainy afternoon, it happened. A package at my door, no return address. Inside was a notebook, leather-bound, soft edges, pages filled with handwriting I knew too well. Claire's. The first line said, If you're reading this, it means I finally found the courage to tell you everything I couldn't before. I sat down. The rain outside tapped against the window like a metronome for her words. She wrote about guilt, how every morning she woke up hoping to forget, and every night she fell asleep remembering. She wrote about therapy, about how she'd stopped drinking, about how she'd written that notebook as part of her healing. And then came the part that broke me open again. Mark left me. He said I'd never stopped loving you, even when I tried to hate you. And maybe he was right. Maybe I didn't cheat because I stopped loving you. Maybe I cheated because I stopped loving myself. I had to close the notebook, because for the first time in months, I didn't know how to feel. Anger didn't fit anymore. Hate didn't stick. It was just quiet. That night, I poured a glass of whiskey, turned on some music, and opened my laptop. The story I'd posted, the letter she was never supposed to read, had over 3 million reads now. Thousands of comments. People calling me brave, others calling me foolish. But one comment stopped me cold. Sometimes the one who writes the letter isn't the victim. They're just the one who got caught first. It was from a new user. The name? Still Claire. My stomach dropped. I clicked on her profile. It was empty, except for one post. A new story, titled, The Letter I Was Never Supposed to Write. I hesitated for a long time before reading it. But curiosity, it's a slow kind of gravity. Her story was raw, honest. She didn't defend herself, didn't make excuses. She told her side, how she'd felt invisible for months before she ever met Mark. How every conversation between us had turned into a checklist of what needed fixing. The bills, the chores, the future. She said my silence had been louder than her betrayal. Then, the ending line. I heard him because I wanted him to notice the wreckage between us. And when he finally did, it was already burning. I didn't know whether to cry or slam the laptop shut. Because she wasn't wrong. We both broke it. We both bled it dry. But she was the only one who had the courage to admit that now. Weeks passed. I didn't reply. I didn't post again. I just lived until one night my phone buzzed again. A number I didn't recognize. Hey, it's Claire. I'm in your city for work. If you ever want closure, real closure, meet me at the cafe on 5th tomorrow at 6. No pressure. I stared at that message for what felt like hours. Closure. That word again. Part of me wanted to delete it. The other part, the one that still remembered her laugh, couldn't. The next evening, I walked into that cafe. She was there already, sitting by the window, her hair shorter now, her eyes tired but soft. For a second, Time folded. "Hey," she said quietly. "Hey," I replied. We just looked at each other. Two people who used to be everything. Now, just strangers with shared memories. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "I almost didn't." She smiled faintly. "You always said that." We both laughed, a real laugh this time. It hurt, but in the best way. She told me about her new life, about working with kids, about how writing her side of the story helped her heal. Then she looked down and said, "I didn't come to fix anything, Ryan. I came to thank you, because if you hadn't written those letters, I never would have faced myself. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. You were brave to send that notebook." Bravery looks a lot like guilt sometimes. We sat there until the sun dipped behind the buildings. No drama, no anger, just two people finally saying goodbye without words. When I stood to leave, she reached across the table and took my hand. "Take care of yourself, okay?" "I will." And that was it. The last time I ever saw her. Months later, I got another letter, this time from her mother. Claire had moved overseas. New job, new life. She was happy. She'd sent one last message for me. "Tell him, I forgive him too." I read that line again and again until the words blurred. Because forgiveness, it's not something you say. It's something you grow into. And I finally did. Now, every night when the rain hits my window, I sit at my desk and write again. Not about her, not anymore. About life. About how love doesn't always end when the relationship does. And when people ask me why I keep writing, I tell them this. Because somewhere out there, someone is sitting in the dark, trying to decide between revenge and peace. And maybe my story will remind them, peace is the louder victory. If you stayed till now, I want to tell you something. Life won't always give you the ending you wanted, but it will give you the closure you need. So if this story made you feel something, if it helped you let go of someone, hit that subscribe. Because there's more where this came from, and maybe the next one will help you heal a little more. Now close your eyes, take a breath, and let the rain carry this one away. She left the engagement ring on the table. But what broke me wasn't that she left. It's that she came back to return it. That sentence still replays in my head every time I walk past that wooden dining table. It's been over a year now, but the memory hasn't faded. If anything, it's grown louder with time. Her name was Emily. We were together for 6 years. We survived college, 2 job changes, a move across the state, and 1 pandemic together. Everyone called us the unbreakable couple. Turns out, even unbreakable things have quiet cracks that nobody sees until they split right down the middle. It started subtle. Missed calls, shorter texts. The laughter that used to come easy between us started sounding rehearsed. I asked if something was wrong. She said, "I'm just tired lately." And I believed her, because when you love someone that much, denial is the most comforting lie. Then came the late nights at work, the excuses that didn't line up, the perfume that wasn't hers lingering on her clothes. I still remember the night I found out. She left her laptop open, just for a minute. Just long enough for a message to light up the screen. "Last night was amazing. Same time tomorrow?" Read hard. My chest went cold. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. A friend, a co-worker, anything but what it looked like. But the truth doesn't wait for permission. When she came home that night, I didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't cry. I just asked, "Who's Daniel?" Her face drained of color. That's the moment I knew. She tried to talk, to explain, to twist it into something survivable. But when I asked why, all she said was, "I don't know. I just felt empty." Empty. That word echoed for weeks. Because I'd given her everything. Every part of me I didn't even know I could give. And still, somehow, she felt empty. She packed her things the next morning. I watched her leave through the rain. Her favorite blue umbrella tilted just enough to hide her face. The ring stayed behind on the table, a silent monument to everything we lost. For months, I tried to rebuild. Therapy, gym, long walks, journaling, the whole checklist of how to move on. But nothing works when you're still haunted by what could have been. Then one night, she came back. It was late, close to midnight. I heard a knock on the door, soft but steady. When I opened it, she was standing there, hair shorter, eyes swollen, holding a small box in her hand. "Hi," she said, just like that, like we hadn't torn each other apart last year. I froze. "What are you doing here?" "I came to return this." She opened the box. Inside was the engagement ring, the same one I'd spent 2 months saving for. I didn't even know she'd kept it. I couldn't say anything. My throat felt tight, like words would only make everything worse. She looked down, her voice trembling. I didn't know what to do with it. I couldn't throw it away, but I can't keep it either. The silence between us was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. Not anger, not sadness, just a strange peace that hurt to breathe in. She walked in slowly, her footsteps echoing against the hardwood floor. Everything looked exactly the same. Same couch, same table, same photos. Except the space between us felt unfamiliar. She sat down and whispered, "I've been in therapy." I nodded, unsure where this was going. She continued, "I thought if I left, I'd stop feeling like I was disappearing. But the truth is, I disappeared the day I hurt you." I didn't expect that. Not from her. Not after everything. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Why now? Why come back after all this time? She looked up, her eyes glistening. Because I finally understood what it means to lose someone who actually loved me. I should have been angry. Should have reminded her of every night I spent wondering what I did wrong. But instead, all I felt was tired. Because forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about letting yourself breathe again. "I don't hate you, Emily," I said quietly. Her eyes widened. "You don't. No, I just don't recognize you anymore." She nodded slowly, biting her lip to keep from crying. Then she stood up, walked to the table, and placed the box down carefully. "This belongs to you," she said. "But if you ever decide to get rid of it, don't sell it. Just let it go somewhere safe." Before she left, she looked around the room once more. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "You kept our photo up." I glanced at the frame on the shelf. I guess I never learned how to forget properly. She smiled faintly. Neither did I. And then she walked out. This time, she didn't look back. But I did. Through the window, I watched her disappear into the night. No umbrella this time. Just rain and her. I picked up the box after she left. Held the ring under the dim light. For the first time, it didn't look like failure. It looked like closure. And I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I drove out to the lake where we'd first talked about marriage. The sky was gray, the water calm. I stood at the edge, opened the box, and whispered, "Goodbye, Emily." Then I tossed the ring into the water. It sank slowly, vanishing beneath the ripples. That was the last time I cried for her. But that wasn't the end, because 1 month later, she sent me something that changed everything again. The message came on a quiet Sunday morning. It was raining again, like the universe couldn't let go of the same mood from the night she left. I was sitting on the porch with coffee in hand when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No name. "Hey, it's Emily. Please don't block me. I just need to say something." For a full minute, I didn't move. Then, almost against my better judgment, I opened the message. She'd sent a photo. It was of the lake, the same place where I threw the ring. Below it was a paragraph. "I went there this morning. I didn't know why, but something told me to. I saw the ripples in the water, and I realized that you must have let it go. I guess I needed to see that to believe it was really over. But I wanted you to know what happened after I left, because maybe if I tell you, it'll hurt a little less." I read the words again and again, not because I missed her, but because it felt like a chapter that hadn't finished writing itself. She went on to explain things I didn't know, details that made the truth sting less, but still burn. After we broke up, Daniel and I didn't last. He wasn't what I thought he was. The things that felt exciting at first turned cold so fast. And when he left, I realized I'd traded something real for something that never existed. I could almost hear her voice while reading, calm, trembling, honest in a way she never managed to be before. She continued, "You didn't deserve what I did. You didn't even get a reason. I told myself I was trying to find myself. But the truth is, I just didn't want to face how much I'd already lost inside. I thought leaving would give me freedom, but it just made me more aware of everything I threw away. I exhaled slowly, leaning back against the porch wall. The rain had softened to a drizzle. Her words were heavy, but they didn't hurt like before. It was strange how forgiveness can start forming before you even realize it's there. Then came the last part of her message, the one that made my heart stop for a second. I kept a copy of the ring photo on my phone, not because I wanted to hold on to it, but because every time I saw it, I remembered the kind of love I once had. I don't expect you to ever forgive me, but I hope someday you find someone who makes you forget that pain ever existed. You deserve that. For a long time, I just stared at the screen. No tears, no anger, just stillness. I typed out a dozen different replies, deleted them all. Finally, I wrote just one sentence. I already forgave you. I just hadn't said it out loud yet. I hit send and put the phone down. That was the moment I realized closure doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you stop needing the apology. A few weeks passed. Life returned to a quiet rhythm. Work, gym, weekend hikes, small moments that felt normal again. But one evening, while scrolling through my email, I noticed something strange. An unread message, timestamped from a month earlier, right after she left that night. The subject line read, "If you ever read this." My heart tightened. I clicked. I know you'll hate me for a while, maybe forever, but I wanted you to know that I didn't cheat because of you. I cheated because I didn't know how to sit with my own emptiness. You made me feel seen, and that terrified me. I kept waiting for you to disappoint me, but you never did. So I created the disappointment myself. That's who I was then. I don't know who I'll become after this, but I hope it's someone who deserves the kind of love you gave me. I read that part 3 times, not out of pity, but because for the first time, her words felt human, not manipulative, not self-pitying, just raw truth. She ended the email with, "If someday, by some miracle, we cross paths again, I hope we're both happy, even if it's not together." That night, I didn't dream about her, didn't replay old memories, didn't wonder what if. I just slept, deeply, peacefully, because closure isn't about forgetting someone. It's about remembering without pain. A year later, something strange happened. I met someone new. Her name's Claire. She's gentle, funny, a little chaotic in the best way. She laughs with her whole face, something Emily never did. We met at a friend's wedding. And on our 3rd date, while sitting by the same lake where I'd said goodbye, she asked, "So what's your story?" I smiled and said, "Long one. Maybe I'll tell you one day." And I realized I didn't need a rush to fill the silence, because this time, silence felt safe. Months later, I found out Emily had moved to another state. A mutual friend said she's working with kids now, helping them deal with anxiety and family issues. I didn't feel bitterness, just gratitude, because maybe, just maybe, both of us became better versions of ourselves because of what broke us. One evening, I went back to the lake again. Same spot, same quiet air. I whispered, "Thank you for coming back that night." Not because I wanted you to, but because I needed to finally let go. The wind picked up, gentle and warm, and I swear it felt like closure itself. Invisible, but finally real. If you've ever been through something like this, you know, healing doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, messy, quiet, but one day you'll wake up, look around, and realize you're okay again. And when that day comes, don't look back. If you're still here listening, thank you for staying till the end. If this story touched you, maybe take a second to breathe. And if you'd like more stories like this, hit subscribe and stay with us tonight. Because every night here, we heal a little together. When you find out the person you love has been lying to your face for months, something inside you just snaps. You stop seeing things in color. You stop hearing the world the same way. It's like your brain detaches from your body, and you're watching your own heartbreak happen in slow motion. That's exactly how I felt the night I found those messages. My name's Ethan. I'm 27, And up until a few months ago, I thought my girlfriend Mia was my forever. We'd been together for 3 years, lived together for 1, and I was secretly saving for a ring. She was funny, smart, had this magnetic energy that drew people in, including apparently my best friend Jason. The night everything fell apart started out like any other. Mia said she was working late at the design studio. I didn't think twice. She always did that near deadlines. But when she left her laptop open before heading out, I noticed her messages pinging. Normally I'd ignore them. But that night, something inside me said, look, maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was my subconscious screaming the truth I didn't want to admit. So I looked, and there it was, Jason's name at the top of her screen. At first it seemed harmless. A few memes, jokes, inside references. But then I scrolled up. I saw things that made my stomach drop. Messages like, last night was insane. I can't stop thinking about you. And don't worry, Ethan's clueless. I just sat there, staring at the screen. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. I read every word, every emoji, every photo. My best friend, my girlfriend, sneaking around for months. They used me. The worst part, they laughed about it, joked about how easy it was to lie to me. I remember standing in the kitchen, shaking. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just felt hollow. I packed a bag and left that night. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at a motel, ignored her calls, and drowned myself in silence. Jason tried to text me too, said it was a mistake, that they were drunk, that it didn't mean anything. Bullshit. You don't accidentally betray someone for months. Mia showed up at my motel 2 days later. She looked like she hadn't slept, mascara smeared, wearing my old hoodie. I almost opened the door, almost. But then I remembered those messages. She knocked for 20 minutes before leaving. When I checked my phone, she'd texted, please talk to me. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. After a week, something inside me flipped. The grief turned into anger. Then the anger turned into focus. If they thought I'd just disappear quietly, they were wrong. See, Jason and I worked together at a small marketing firm. He was technically my senior, the guy who helped me get the job. And Mia? She'd done freelance work for the same company. So yeah, they had access to a lot. But I also knew things about them, things that could ruin them. Jason was hiding company funds in a side project. I'd seen the reports. Mia had faked an entire client portfolio to get her last contract. I didn't plan to destroy them right away. No, that would be too easy. I wanted them to feel it. I started slow, subtle. I leaked Jason's fake side project invoices anonymously to HR. I knew exactly what it would look like fraud. Within a week, an internal audit started. Jason was confused, nervous, trying to act casual, but I saw the cracks forming. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on Mia. I had access to her shared design folder from when we'd collaborated on a project together. Turns out, she'd reused a client's work in a new submission, plagiarism. So I sent that too. Both of them were spiraling, and they had no idea who was behind it. I'd sit in my apartment at night, watching the rain slide down my window, imagining the panic in their voices. Jason called me one night. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail saying, "Bro, I don't know what's going on. Everything's falling apart. I need to talk." I just listened to it twice and smiled. Then came the final move. I waited until Jason's HR hearing was scheduled. The same morning, I sent Mia's client a little anonymous tip about her reused work. Within hours, both their careers started crumbling. Jason got suspended. Mia lost her biggest client. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. But it wasn't over. Because revenge isn't just about payback. It's about closure. And I didn't have that yet. 2 weeks later, Mia texted again. "I need to see you. Please. Just once." Part of me wanted to ignore it. But curiosity, or maybe cruelty, got the better of me. We met at our old coffee spot, the one where we had our first date. When I saw her walk in, my chest tightened again. She looked fragile, empty, not the same woman I'd fallen for, or the one who betrayed me. She sat down across from me and said quietly, I messed up. I know you'll never forgive me. But I need you to understand I didn't mean to hurt you. I just stared at her. You didn't mean to? I repeated, my voice calm but cold. You lied for months, Mia. You slept with my best friend. You planned trips together. You laughed about it. She started crying softly. I know. I was scared. I felt trapped. And Jason made me feel. I cut her off. Jason made you feel alive? Made you feel seen? Spare me the cliche. She dropped her eyes. There was a long silence. Then she said, You got us fired, didn't you? I smiled a little. Did I? She sighed. Ethan, you think this makes you even? It doesn't. It makes you just like us. I leaned forward and whispered, No, Mia. It makes me better. Because I didn't betray someone who trusted me. I just gave karma a little push. She didn't say anything after that. She just got up and left. That was the last time I saw her. Weeks turned into months. Jason moved out of town after losing his job. Mia disappeared from social media. I started rebuilding my life. Therapy, new friends, new city. It wasn't easy, but felt good, real. But sometimes, late at night, I still replay everything. The lies, the laughter, the moment I found out. And weirdly, I don't feel pain anymore. I feel gratitude, because losing them forced me to find myself again. They broke me once. I rebuilt myself stronger. And now, I don't forgive them, but I've moved on. I guess in the end, revenge wasn't about destroying them. It was about proving I could rise above it. Still, if I ever saw them again, Idis Mila, because they'll never know it was me. 6 months. That's how long it had been since I'd last seen either of them. I quit the firm, found a new place, and started piecing my life together again. Therapy helped. Gym helped. Time helped. But every now and then, when it rained especially, I feel that same cold ache crawl back up my spine. The sound of rain had been there the night everything broke. And somehow, it always brought the memories with it. That's why it was so ironic that the night he came back, it was raining again. I was closing up a small cafe where I'd started working part-time after quitting the firm. Life was quiet now. No chaos. No betrayal. No lies. Just peace. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something made me look. The message said, We need to talk. It's about Mia. Jason. I froze. My first thought was, what nerve? After everything, he had the audacity to text me? I typed back one word. What? His reply came quick. Because she's missing. I didn't believe him at first. Jason was a liar. A manipulator. He could fake sincerity better than most people could fake sleep. But something about the message felt off. Desperate. And when I saw the news the next morning, my stomach dropped. Local woman missing after storm. Last seen leaving a friend's apartment downtown. The photo beside the headline was Mia. Part of me felt nothing. Part of me felt everything. I tried to convince myself it wasn't my problem. I'd moved on. I had no reason to care. But my chest still tightened every time I saw her face on the screen. So when Jason called again that night, I picked up. His voice sounded hollow. Ethan, man, I don't know what to do. I stayed silent. She's been gone for 3 days, he continued. No one's heard from her. Her phone's dead. Her apartment was broken into. I clenched my jaw. And why are you telling me this? Because, he hesitated, she told me she was going to meet you before she disappeared. My blood ran cold. What? Yeah, he said. She said she wanted to apologize. Said she was finally ready to tell you everything. I felt my pulse pounding in my temples. I haven't seen her since that coffee shop. Months ago, Jason went quiet for a long time. Then he said, Ethan, we need to talk in person. I should have said no. I wanted to say no. But curiosity is a powerful drug. We met the next evening at a small diner on the edge of town. When I walked in, Jason looked like a ghost of his former self. Unshaven, sleepless, eyes sunken. Not the confident, smug guy I once knew. He stood up awkwardly as I approached. Thanks for coming, man. I didn't shake his hand, just sat down across from him. Talk. He sighed. Look, I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, but I think someone's following me. I frowned. What the hell are you talking about? I started getting weird emails last week, he said, sliding his phone across the table. Pictures of me walking home, sitting in my car. Stuff that feels personal. I scrolled through the photos. Grainy shots. Same dark sedan in the background. This started after Mia disappeared? I asked. He nodded. And whoever it is, they know about us. About what we did to you. For a second, I thought he was trying to mess with me again. But his hands were shaking. Ethan, he said, voice breaking slightly. I think someone's trying to make us pay. I leaned back slowly, my mind spinning. Karma. I said, funny how that works. He shook his head. I'm serious. This is different. This isn't normal. I stared at him. Jason, the only reason you're panicking is because for once, you're the one being watched. He looked down, ashamed. Maybe I deserve it. But Mia doesn't. The air between us went still. He continued quietly. Before she vanished, she said someone had been following her too. She thought it was you. I almost laughed. Me? Yeah, he said. She said she saw your car outside her building twice. I scoffed. I don't even live in the same city anymore. Jason rubbed his face. Then who the hell is doing this? Over the next few days, the mystery ate at me. I told myself it wasn't my problem, but something about it didn't add up. Then, 2 nights later, I found an envelope under my apartment door. No return address. No name. Inside, a single photo. Me, sitting at the cafe, working, and scribbled on the back. You don't get to walk away clean. For the first time in months, I felt fear crawl under my skin. Whoever this was knew everything. I called Jason immediately. Did you get something too? He didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. The next morning, I got another message, this time from an unknown number. You should check on your old friend. Attached, a location pin. I hesitated for hours before going. Every logical part of me screamed don't, but I couldn't ignore it. The pin led to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place you see in crime dramas right before things go terribly wrong. The front door was slightly open. Inside, darkness, echoing water drops, and a faint metallic smell. I called out, Jason. No answer. I walked deeper in. My flashlight cut through the dark, then stopped on something on the floor. A phone, cracked, still buzzing with missed calls. Jason's, and beside it, a smear of blood. I stumbled back, my heart racing. Before I could react, my phone buzzed again. Same number. Told you. You don't get to choose how the story ends. I bolted, drove home with shaking hands, triple-locked my door, and sat there in silence. What the hell was happening? Was this some twisted revenge from someone else we'd wronged? Was Mia actually gone? Or was this all part of some elaborate setup? I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, police cars lined the warehouse. Jason's body had been found behind a locked door, ruled as suspicious circumstances. I felt sick. Not guilt, not yet. Just disbelief. Because whoever was doing this, they'd planned it carefully. Then came the final message. 2 days after Jason's death, another envelope showed up. Inside, a single USB drive. When I plugged it into my laptop, a video started playing. Mia, sitting in a dimly lit room, eyes red from crying. She looked straight at the camera and said, Ethan, if you're watching this, something's gone wrong. I froze. I found out who's been sending those messages. It's not Jason. It's not you. It's someone who knows everything about what we did. Someone close to you. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. She continued, voice trembling, it's your brother. My world tilted. I had one brother, Adam. We hadn't spoken in years. He'd always resented me for being this successful one. He'd met Mia once at a party. Just once. Or so I thought. Mia's recording went on. He told me you'd ruin me one day. He said he wanted to help me fix things. I believed him until I realized he was the one pulling the strings. She wiped her tears. He's dangerous, Ethan. Don't trust him. Please. The video glitched, then ended abruptly. For a long time, I just sat there. Adam, my own brother. I grabbed my phone, found his number buried deep in my contacts, and called. It rang twice before he picked up. "Ethan," he said, his tone eerily calm. "Been a while." I swallowed hard. "What did you do?" A pause, then a quiet chuckle. "I told you years ago. You always get what you deserve." The line went dead. That night, the rain came again, hard and heavy, slamming against the windows. I sat there in the dark, watching it, realizing how deep this had gone. The betrayal hadn't ended with Mia or Jason. It had just evolved. Maybe I'd started this chain reaction when I took revenge. Maybe Adam had just finished what I began. Either way, the storm wasn't over. Not yet. And as I sat there, a new message appeared on my screen. "See you soon, brother." If this story gave you chills, you'll want to hear what happens when Ethan finally faces his brother. Don't miss the next story. Subscribe now and fall asleep to more cinematic drama, betrayal, and revenge every night. She cheated, lied, and made me question my sanity. But when I found out who helped her, the real betrayal began. The first time I saw Claire, she was laughing under a string of lights at a friend's rooftop party. Her laugh, sharp, quick, honest, cut through the noise. I remember thinking, that's the kind of sound people chase their whole lives. We hit it off fast. She was an artist, chaotic, emotional, always barefoot on the balcony with paint on her hands. I was the stable one, spreadsheets, deadlines, order. We balanced each other, or at least that's what I thought. For 2 years, she was my world, until one night, that world cracked, quietly, cruelly, in a way that never made noise, just silence. It started with a smell. Cologne, not mine. Claire had been distant for weeks. New projects, late nights at her studio, vague texts. When I asked what was going on, she smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Just tired, baby." I wanted to believe her. I did believe her, until the night she forgot to log out of her laptop. I wasn't snooping. I was just trying to find the file for our vacation tickets. But there it was, a message thread. "Evan, last night was perfect. Claire, you make me feel alive again." My heart stopped. Evan, not just anyone, my best friend. We'd known each other since college. He was the kind of guy people trusted immediately. Charming, helpful, always ready with a joke. And he knew everything about me, including Claire, how much I loved her, how terrified I was of losing her. And he still did it. I sat there for hours, staring at the screen, reading everything, every text, every photo, every lie. They'd been seeing each other for almost 3 months. At first behind art events, then late work nights. I couldn't breathe, couldn't even cry. It wasn't the act, it was the audacity. The fact that they looked me in the eyes every day and pretended nothing was wrong. When she came home that night, I was sitting in the dark. She looked startled. "Ethan, you scared me." I said nothing, just turned the laptop toward her. Her face went white. "W8?" she stammered. "I can explain." "Don't." My voice cracked. "Just don't." She dropped her bag, eyes filling with tears. "I am sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't mean to sleep with my best friend?" Her lips trembled. "It wasn't like that. Things between us. Don't rewrite history now." She tried to reach for me. "Please, Ethan. I love you." I stepped back. "You don't get to say that anymore." I kicked her out that night. Blocked her. Blocked him. But heartbreak doesn't respect boundaries. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. Every song, every smell, every stupid joke reminded me of them. And then the guilt came, that twisted, ugly part of love that whispers, "What if it was your fault?" But the thing is, even in pain, I've always been a planner. And this time, my plan was simple: make them regret everything. So I played nice. I pretended to move on. I even posted a few smiling photos online, made sure both of them saw. A few weeks later, Evan reached out. "Man, can we talk? Please." I screwed up. I ignored him. He sent another, then another. Finally, I replied, "Sure, let's meet. Old Cafe, 6 p.m. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. No smug green, no easy confidence, just guilt. He sat down slowly. I don't even know where to start. I leaned back. How about the part where you ruined a 10-year friendship? He rubbed his face. I messed up. I was drunk. Lonely. It was stupid. 3 months of stupid. He flinched. She said you two were falling apart. I clenched my jaw. And you thought that gave you permission? He didn't answer. Just stared at the table. Then he said something that froze me. She's not who you think she is, Ethan. I frowned. What the hell does that mean? She used me too. He looked up, eyes red. After everything, she ghosted me. Took money from my account. Disappeared. My chest tightened. Money? What money? I helped her with her art stuff. Loans. I thought. I cut him off. How much? He hesitated. Almost 10 grand. 10 grand. I laughed quietly. Guess she found her next project. He leaned forward. I think she planned all this, man. The affair, the breakup, everything. I didn't believe him at first. But something in his tone, that desperate confusion, felt too real to fake. So I started digging. Claire's art studio had a small website. Under her recent collaborations, one name stood out, Adam Connors, a patron who'd funded her latest exhibition. I didn't recognize him, but when I checked his social media, I froze. He was married to my boss's sister, and one of Claire's tag photos showed her at his house. The same night, she told me she was painting downtown. That's when I realized Evan was right. She wasn't just cheating. She was using. She'd been playing everyone, me, Evan, and apparently this married guy too. So I did what any broken, betrayed man does when his heart turns to fire. I turned the pain into a plan. First, I gathered everything. Texts, emails, transfers. I even messaged the patron's wife anonymously, hinting about the affair. 2 days later, she replied, I knew it. Thank you. Then she sent me something that changed everything. Screenshots of her husband's messages with Claire. Turns out, Claire had promised him privacy in exchange for investment. But she wasn't planning to stay. She was planning to expose him after draining his money and vanish. That's when I saw my window. I knew where she was. She'd been renting a small cabin outside town under a fake name, probably hiding out while things cooled off. So I drove there. The road was long, wet, quiet, the kind of silence that hums before something breaks. When I arrived, her car was outside. Lights on. I parked far enough not to be seen, heart pounding. For a long minute, I just stood there, watching the shadows move behind the curtains. Then I walked to the door and knocked once. She opened it halfway, eyes wide, shocked. Ethan, I smiled faintly. Long time no see. Her voice shook. What are you doing here? Oh, just wanted to drop by. Catch up. Maybe talk about Adam Connors. She froze. I don't know what you were. I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshots. Her face drained of color. Guess your little art fund got complicated, I said. She swallowed hard. Please, Ethan. You don't understand. Enlighten me. Tears welled in her eyes. He's dangerous. You don't know what he's capable of. I stepped closer. You mean like you? She shook her head violently. No, listen to me. He's watching both of us. He knows about what I did. He said if I ever talk, he'll... I cut her off. You're lying again. I'm not, she cried. You think I'm the villain, but I was trying to get out. Something in her tone made me pause. The fear, it wasn't fake this time. It was real. She looked behind me nervously. He's coming. Please, you have to go. Who? Before she could answer, headlights flooded the cabin. A black SUV rolled up the gravel path. Her voice dropped to a whisper. That's him. I turned toward the door, my pulse spiking. Claire grabbed my arm. You can't let him see you. But it was too late. The engine stopped. Footsteps crunched through the rain. A man stepped into the light, tall, suit, umbrella. Calm. The same face I'd seen in the photos. Adam Connors. He looked at me, then at Claire, and smiled faintly. Well, he said, this is awkward. I froze when I saw the video. My hands trembled, my vision blurred, and my stomach twisted like I'd been punched. There it was, clear as day. My girlfriend, Mia, sitting in her car, laughing and holding hands with the same guy who'd been helping her study. I couldn't breathe. The video had been sent anonymously. No message, no explanation. Just a simple clip that shattered everything I believed in. I didn't reply right away. I didn't call her. I didn't even cry. I just sat there, watching the seconds roll by as she leaned closer to him, then kissed him. The girl I trusted with my soul was betraying me, on camera. The next morning, I decided to act like nothing had happened. I texted her, "Hey babe, you free tonight? Thought we could do dinner." She replied instantly, "Of course. I'd love that." I smiled at my phone, a cold, empty smile, because tonight, she'd finally see what betrayal feels like. At dinner, Mia was radiant. She laughed, told stories about her group project, and reached across the table to touch my hand. I kept my expression steady, calm, like I hadn't seen her with him the night before. When dessert came, I stood up. "I have something to show you," I said softly. She blinked. "What's wrong?" I handed her my phone and hit play. Her smile vanished instantly. Her hand flew to her mouth. Where did you get this?" she whispered. "Doesn't matter," I said. "Just tell me, was it worth it?" She started crying. "It wasn't what it looked like. I swear he kissed me first." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't seem to pull away." She tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. "You lied to me, Mia. For weeks. You made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting anything." "Please," she sobbed. "I messed up, but I love you." Love. I cut her off. You don't destroy the person you love and call a mistake. When she realized there was no saving it, she went silent. Then something changed in her face. The tears stopped. Her jaw tightened. "Fine," she spat. "You're not perfect either. You act like you own me, like you're some hero. You think this is revenge? Go ahead, play the victim. Histoire de rire. You already did that for me." I walked out, leaving her there, frozen between guilt and anger. Days passed. I ignored her messages, her calls, her letters. But inside, I was burning. The betrayal kept looping in my head like a song I couldn't stop hearing. So I made a choice. If she could play dirty, I'd play smarter. Mia worked as a marketing intern for a local firm. The guy she cheated with? Her senior, Dylan. I found his social media, his girlfriend, his boss. I didn't need to lie. I just needed to reveal the truth. I sent screenshots, timestamps, the video, all anonymously. Within a week, Dylan was out of his job. His girlfriend dumped him publicly on Instagram. And Mia? She found herself surrounded by whispers at work. Her manager reconsidered her internship renewal. One night, she showed up at my door. Her face was pale, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Doing what?" I said flatly. "You ruined my life." I laughed. "No, Mia, you ruined mine. I just returned the favor." She broke down, sinking to her knees. "I made one mistake. You're destroying everything." I leaned closer. That's the thing about betrayal. It's never just one mistake. It's 1,000 little choices that led to it. She stared at me, eyes full of regret. "You won't feel better after this." I paused. Maybe not, but at least now we're even. For weeks after that, I felt numb. There was satisfaction, yes, but it didn't heal me. Then one night, while deleting old photos, I found a picture of us at the beach. She was laughing, the sun behind her, and I realized something terrifying. Revenge hadn't brought closure. It had just kept me chained to her longer. Months later, I heard Mia had moved to another city, started therapy, tried to rebuild her life. And me, I started journaling. I poured every ounce of pain into words until the rage turned into something softer, understanding. Not forgiveness, just release. Last week, I got a letter. It was from her. "I don't expect you to forgive me," it said, "but I want you to know I'll never stop regretting what I did. I learned what loyalty really means because I lost the only person who gave it to me." I folded the letter, placed it in a box, and smiled faintly. Because maybe, just maybe, we both learned something about love the hard way. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is not destruction, but walking away without needing to look back. And if you made it this far, maybe you felt something too. Subscribe for more stories that hit deep, stories of heartbreak, betrayal, and the kind of healing that doesn't come easy. He thought he could cheat, lie, and walk away like nothing happened, but he had no idea who he was really dealing with. You know that gut feeling? The one that whispers something's off, even when everything looks perfect on the surface. That's exactly what I felt the night my boyfriend, Adam, told me he was working late again. It wasn't the first time, and it wasn't the way he said it. It was the silence after. That kind of quiet that feels like someone just slammed a door inside your heart. We'd been together for 3 years. We shared an apartment, a dog, and plans for the future. I thought we were solid. But lately, something had shifted. He stopped holding me like he used to. He laughed less. And worst of all, he stopped looking me in the eyes. I kept trying to rationalize it. He's stressed from work, I told myself. He's just tired. But deep down I knew something was wrong. The real breaking point came on a Thursday night. He said he was working a double shift at the office, so I decided to surprise him. I picked up his favorite takeout, threw on his hoodie, and drove over. It was around 9:45 p.m. when I pulled up outside his building. But his car wasn't in the lot. Strange. I called him. He didn't answer. Texted him. No reply. 10 minutes later, I saw headlights pull into the street, and there it was. His car. But he wasn't alone. A girl was sitting in the passenger seat. She had long blonde hair, and she was laughing at something he said. My heart stopped when she reached across and touched his arm. They didn't see me. I was parked a little behind a row of cars, but I saw everything. They got out, and he placed his hand on her back as they walked toward the building. My building. I couldn't breathe. My ears started ringing. I waited until they went inside before I got out and followed. The elevator dinged open on our floor. I could hear them giggling before I even stepped out. I didn't think. I just moved. My keys were shaking in my hand as I unlocked the door, heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. The sound of their laughter stopped instantly when they saw me standing in the doorway. Adam froze like a deer caught in headlights. The girl turned, wide-eyed, clutching her purse. Who the hell is she? I demanded, my voice trembling with rage. Adam stammered, "Babe, it's not what it looks like." A laugh, the kind of laugh that comes from pure disbelief. Really? Because it looks exactly like what it looks like. The girl looked between us, confused. "You said you were single," she whispered. That's when I realized she wasn't just some fling. She didn't even know about me. "Get out," I said to her. She grabbed her purse and ran, tears in her eyes. And then it was just me and Adam. He tried to grab my hand. "Please, I can explain." "Explain what?" I snapped. "That you've been lying to my face for weeks? That you brought her into our apartment? I didn't mean for it to happen." "Oh, of course not," I shouted. "You just accidentally fell into her lips." He rubbed his face, frustrated. "You've been distant lately, okay?" I felt like you didn't care anymore. I stared at him, speechless. "So you cheated because I didn't care enough?" He looked away. I made a mistake. I felt the tears burn my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "No, Adam. A mistake is forgetting your anniversary. This is a choice." I didn't sleep that night. I packed a bag, took the dog, and went to stay with my sister. The next few days were hell. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts, calls, voicemails. He said he missed me, that he was sorry, that he'd do anything to fix it. But the thing is, when someone betrays you like that, it's not just about the cheating. It's about the death of trust, the quiet, invisible bond that holds everything together. Once that's gone, nothing feels real anymore. Then came a twist. 3 days later, I got a message from the girl. Her name was Claire. She found me through Instagram. "Hey," she wrote, "I'm so sorry about what happened. I didn't know he had a girlfriend. But there's something you should see." Attached was a screenshot. Adam's messages to another girl. Not her. Someone else entirely. My blood ran cold. This man wasn't just cheating once. He'd been juggling multiple women. I felt sick. That's when something inside me snapped. All this time, I've been crying, begging for closure, wondering what I did wrong, when in reality, he was out there living like nothing mattered. So I decided to give him a taste of his own chaos. I wasn't going to slash his tires or burn his stuff. No, I was going to be smarter, colder, surgical. If he wanted to play games, I'd make sure he lost everything. It started with his friends. I still had access to his group chat. He never changed his password. So I sent screenshots of his messages with the other women. Every single one. Within minutes, his phone started blowing up. Then I sent the same screenshots to his boss. He worked in sales where reputation mattered. The texts were enough to raise questions about professional misconduct. He got called into HR the next morning. And finally, I sent a little package to his mom. Printed photos, screenshots, and a handwritten note that said, "Your son's not who you think he is." By the time he called me again, his voice was shaking. "What did you do?" he asked, panicked. "Nothing you didn't do first," I said calmly. "This isn't funny," he shouted. "You ruined my life." I smiled through the phone. "No, Adam, you ruined mine. I just returned the favor." That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the balcony with my dog. The air smelled like rain. The city lights shimmered below, and for the first time in weeks, I felt calm. Not happy, not vindicated, just calm. Because sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone back. It's about finally realizing you never needed them in the first place. He thought losing me was bad, but he hadn't seen what real karma looks like yet. It's funny how quiet your world gets after chaos. After I blew everything up, the friends, the job, the illusion, I expected to feel regret. Maybe guilt, maybe loneliness. But what I felt was peace. The kind of peace that comes when you finally burn down the bridge that was killing you to keep standing. Still, something inside me wasn't finished. Not yet. Because while I might have exposed Adam for the lying fraud he was, there was one thing I hadn't done. Confront him face to face one last time. 2 weeks passed. I heard from mutual friends that he'd been suspended from work pending an internal review. His mom stopped talking to him. His social media went dark. But then, out of nowhere, I got a message. It was him. "We need to talk. Please. Just once. No yelling. No games." Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, the part that still wanted answers, couldn't resist. So I told him to meet me at the small cafe near the river. The same one where we'd had our first date. It was poetic, maybe cruel, maybe both. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting in the corner, nursing a black coffee, looking nothing like the man I once knew. His hair was a mess, eyes sunken, clothes wrinkled. For the first time, he looked defeated. "Hey," he said quietly. I sat across from him without a word. He fidgeted with his hands. "You look good," he said. I smiled faintly. "You look like you've been through hell." He sighed. "Yeah, I guess I have." We sat in silence for a moment, the rain outside tapping against the windows. It felt cinematic, like the end of a story we both knew couldn't be saved. Finally, I asked, "Why?" He looked up. "I don't know. I wish I did. It just happened." I shook my head slowly. "That's not an answer, Adam. You don't accidentally cheat on someone. You make a choice." He ran a hand through his hair. "I was insecure, okay? You were pulling away, working more, and I felt like I didn't matter. Claire made me feel wanted. You could have talked to me," I said, voice trembling. "But you lit. You made me question my sanity. You took every ounce of trust one gave you and crushed it." He stared down at his coffee. "I know, and I'll regret it forever." I leaned forward. Regret doesn't fix anything. It's just guilt with better PR. He looked at me, eyes wet. "Do you hate me?" I thought about that for a second. "No. Hating you would mean I still care enough to waste energy. I just don't feel anything anymore." He flinched. That's when I realized my calm hurt him more than my rage ever did. After a long pause, he said softly, "You ruined my life." I laughed quietly. "You ruined your own life. I've just turned the lights on." His jaw tightened. "You told my boss, my mom, my friends, Everyone thinks I'm a monster. I met his eyes. Maybe stop doing monstrous things. He stood abruptly, slamming his hand on the table. You don't understand. I've lost everything. I stood too, keeping my voice steady. Good. Now you know how it feels. People were staring. I didn't care. I grabbed my purse and started to walk away. But as I reached the door, I heard him whisper, "I still love you." I turned, met his gaze one last time, and said, "Then you should have acted like it." That was the last time I ever saw him. Weeks passed. I focused on rebuilding myself. Not revenge, not memories, just me. I got a new apartment, changed my number, picked up painting again, something I hadn't done since college. Every night, I'd sit by my window with my dog curled at my feet, watching the city lights flicker under the rain. And every time thunder rolled, it reminded me, storms don't destroy everything. Sometimes, they just clear what's rotten. But life had one more surprise in store. One afternoon, my sister called. "You'll never guess who I ran into," she said. "Who?" "Claire." I froze. "She wanted me to tell you thank you," my sister continued. "She said you saved her from him. Apparently, after you exposed him, she found out he was still texting girls, even after the breakup." I laughed softly. Some people never change. She said he's trying to start over, but no one trusts him. Karma's eating him alive. I didn't say anything for a moment, then whispered, "Good." Months passed. Seasons changed. And then, one evening in late spring, I got a letter. A physical one, with my name written in messy handwriting I recognized immediately. Adam. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. Inside was a single page. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wanted to tell you I finally understand what I lost. I'm in therapy now. I've quit drinking. I've been trying to be a better man. I hope someday, when you think of me, it won't be with hate. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed it. Adam." I folded it up, set it on the table, and sat in silence. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe he wasn't, but it didn't matter anymore, because I'd already found peace, the kind that doesn't need closure. That night, I walked out onto my balcony. The rain was falling again, soft and rhythmic, like the world was finally breathing with me. I whispered to myself, "You did it. You let go." And for the first time in forever, I smiled without faking it. Some say revenge is sweet, but I learned something better. That peace, real peace, is quieter. It doesn't shout. It doesn't burn. It just arrives one day and stays. And as the thunder rolled in the distance, I whispered the last words I'd ever dedicate to him. "You taught me how to love harder and how to leave louder." If you're still here, thank you for listening till the end. Remember, sometimes walking away isn't losing, it's winning in silence. And if stories like this help you fall asleep or think a little deeper, don't forget to subscribe. There's another one waiting for you tomorrow. Calm, honest, and real.